Shalom everybody, Shavua Tov. I'm Rolene Marks. Welcome to a new week of the Israel Brief, brought to you by Lay of the Land. And this is where I bring you those top stories making headlines from Israel every Monday to Thursday. Now, the whole world over the last 5 days has been watching the news as Russia has invaded Ukraine. At the moment, we can confirm that talks are underway for a permanent ceasefire, at least that's what Ukraine are demanding, on the border of Belarus between delegations from the two countries. We can also confirm that the Russian military has said that its nuclear deterrent forces are on high alert. Now, as we said to you last week, there is a lot of news surrounding this story. But what we're going to do here on the Israel Brief is bring you Israel's response and how Israel features in the whole situation. While talks are underway, we can also confirm that the owner of Chelsea Football Club and Russian oligarch Roman Abramovich has confirmed that he is trying to broker some kind of ceasefire. This was confirmed by the British media, and Abramovich's spokesperson has said, as you can understand, the situation does have a lot of sensitivities and he won't be commenting on more than that. It was also confirmed yesterday that Israel's Prime Minister Naftali Bennett had a phone call with Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, the first time since Russia has invaded Ukraine. We don't have the exact details of the conversation, but we do know that Prime Minister Bennett offered to moderate a ceasefire or moderate between Russia and Ukraine. And according to Reuters reports, President Putin was open to this. Now, this comes as Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has spoken to Israel and has acknowledged and asked Israel to possibly be some kind of mediator, and also last week insisted that if Israel does take on the mantle of mediator, that talks be held in Jerusalem. Now, Israel has a very, very interesting position between the two countries. Israel has good diplomatic relations with both Ukraine and Russia. In fact, the president of Ukraine is Jewish, considers himself a Zionist. So we do have these strong ties there, and also just bilateral ties between the two countries. However, Israel also has good diplomatic relations between Israel, and as we face threats on our borders through Syria, Israel depends on Russia to maintain the calm on the border and to make sure that we don't have attacks coming from Syria or coming from Iran via Syria onto our borders. Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett has also spoken several times with President Zelensky, and in a phone call just 2 days ago confirmed that Israel will be sending 100 tons of humanitarian aid to Ukraine. This will include water purification kits. It will also include medical aid, medical equipment, medicine, tents, blankets, sleeping bags, and other supplies. Israel has also dispatched 2 big teams of medical personnel, United Hatzolah, as well as Israel Aid, to help refugees deal not only with medical needs, but also with post-traumatic stress disorder needs. Lebanese students have been taking to social media platform Twitter to thank Israel for helping to evacuate them after they were stranded in Ukraine. And it has been confirmed that Israel's mission to Ukraine has been helping stranded Syrians, Lebanese, and Egyptians to safety, bringing them along with Israelis who are being evacuated. Yad Vashem, Israel's Holocaust Memorial and Museum, yesterday also announced a rebuking attack on Vladimir Putin for his invasion of Ukraine. This is particularly interesting because Russian oligarch Roman Abramovich, who, as I said just moments ago, who is trying to broker a ceasefire, has also donated 8 million shekels for Holocaust education to the museum. And over the last couple of nights, thousands have rallied in Tel Aviv in support of Ukraine. Now, we have to understand that Israel has two very, very big communities, both Ukrainian and Russian, and we do have to balance the sensitivities of both. We also have major concerns for our Jewish communities in both countries, and the Jewish Agency for Israel confirmed today that about 5,000 Ukrainians have investigated or applied for Aliyah, that is immigration to Israel. And I just want to take a moment before we go any further just to acknowledge Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the team of the Israel Embassy in Ukraine for the extraordinary way that they are helping our civilians on the ground there, as well as from other countries. Our Foreign Minister Yair Lapid confirmed just moments ago that Israel will join a UN General Assembly resolution condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Lapid went on to say it is imperative that Israel is on the right side of history. Now, on Friday, Israel abstained from backing a US-backed resolution at the UN Security Council condemning Russia. And there are several thoughts about this. One is that the US understands our precarious position with the threats coming in from Iran, but also that it might help Israel be a moderator in any kind of peace talks between the two countries. And with everybody's attention on the Ukraine and the grave growing humanitarian crisis, one would think that the UN Human Rights Council would make that a priority. Unfortunately, not. The Human Rights Council debated that permanent item on its agenda, Israel and the Palestinians. Human rights icon and former Soviet dissident Natan Sharansky, who is much beloved not just in the Jewish world but around the world, has also spoken out on the need to condemn Putin. He also has said that it is a human rights issue and the world must stand up against dictators like Putin. So those are the top stories, at least from Israel's perspective, but don't forget to join us tomorrow for your top stories as we bring you the latest from Israel. I'm Rolene Marks with the Israel Brief. Thank you for watching, and if you like this content, please don't forget to check out our website at www.layoftheland.online. We will be publishing an extraordinary piece, a speech to the Irish Parliament by Arab-Israeli activist Youssef Haddad. We are also on Facebook. Our community there is growing. Please, if you can, give us a like, a follow, share our content. If you're viewing us on YouTube, please consider subscribing by clicking on the red button and like and share our content. And if you're on Twitter, please follow us at Lay of the Land 5. So all that remains is for me to wish you a safe and healthy rest of your day, and we'll be back tomorrow with your top stories.